Hi guys, I'm Steve. Welcome to Grab a Pint With. Tonight, we're going to be talking about stouts. Just to let you know off the bat, this is not my job. I don't own a brewery. I am not a brewmaster. I am not brewing my own beer at home. I have a beard. I've been a large beer enthusiast for a long time, so I just know a lot about it, so I'm sharing it with the public. I know what you're thinking. It's our first video, and yet here we are tackling stouts, a beer that people don't really like. It's certainly not the first choice of a lot of people. Typically, most people will go towards lagers or ales, even sours, because they are an easier drinking beer, and realistically, they're just not as intimidating. You know, you look at a stout and, oh shit, it's dark, it's scary, I don't like how it smells, it's too bitter. It just isn't appealing to people. But you'll come to find out that there's a lot of beers that are all over the spectrum, that are lighter, some that are heavier, some that are meant to be sipped, and then there are some that are oyster beers, which sound disgusting, but that's a story for another time. Tonight, we're going to be talking about 4 beers in particular. We've got a coffee stout, a milk stout, this is actually a donut pastry stout, and then of course, you've got Guinness, which is just a drought stout, probably the most impressive and most well-known stout beer in the world. So the first beer we're going to talk about is a coffee maple syrup stout, coming from the guys up in Bissell Brothers, up in Portland, Maine. Anybody in the craft beer world that's from the New England area has absolutely heard of Bissell Brothers. They're not normally known for their stouts. You know, they typically are more known for their ales and their IPAs. Anybody in this area that's into the beer world knows Swish is one of the best beers that's ever been made, one of the best IPAs. Literally sells out in 3 minutes every time. They have release parties for it, and if you don't catch it early on, you're completely shit out of luck. At any rate, we're talking about First Crack, which is the stout beer. This is only one out of a couple, like I said, that Bissell Brothers make. The other one is named Umber. That's an oatmeal stout. It's a little more hearty and things. This is definitely a different kind of beer. They got it from local sources, local coffee, local maple syrup, which is great, you know, helping the community, small farms, small organizations. That's awesome. It's a 7.5, which is strong, but not strong, especially in terms if you're talking about IPAs and things like that. It's definitely a heavy hitter in the Bissell Brothers world. They really don't make a lot of beers that are that heavy. You know, this beer in particular, you know, it's going to have strong scent of coffee. It's going to have things of maple. It's just going to hit you in the face with it. You know, that's just the kind of beer that it's going to be. So why don't we get to open? It's always important to sniff beers. I know it seems strange, but it's a sense. You sniff beers, it gets your mind ready, it kind of gets the ball rolling as to what your taste buds are going to be experiencing. Some beers taste great when they don't smell good, and then vice versa. So right off the bat, I mean, this beer, the first thing you hit when you sniff it is the coffee. Not too surprised. You know, local beans, they're going to be stronger, everything like that. You could definitely smell the maple syrup, which gives it like a really, really, really good aroma, you know. Obviously, you taste malt and smell malt. I mean, that's basically what makes a stout, you know. In terms of pouring it out, as you can see, there's little to no head on this. Head, of course, being the foam part at the top. You've got some that is up here, but as you can see, it dissipates pretty quickly, you know. That's not a big deal. It's not that surprising as well. I mean, with coffee and maple syrup, it's going to dissipate pretty quickly on you. But as you can see, it's got a really, really, really dark color. Again, common stereotype. The brown top, undoubtedly from the coffee beans and the maple syrup. It's kind of tough to see, but in the right light, it's actually got a little bit of like brown or amber hues, again, from the maple syrup, that's for sure. So let's give it a try here. Yep, right off the bat, a lot of coffee. It's really bitter, really strong, definitely hits you in the head with it. It smooths out really, really well though. The maple syrup that is inside of it definitely does a good job of kind of calming it down and, kind of takes away from the bitterness. I think it might be a little bit too bitter. The coffee in it is probably just a really strong condensed portion of a dark roast. So you taste it and it definitely hits you in the mouth, definitely lingers in your mouth. But again, it does balance out pretty well with the maple syrup that's in there. Overall, I would probably give this beer like a 3 out of 5. The flavor's good. I just wished it was a little bit more balanced. The coffee, again, is just really strong. It's just personally not exactly my go-to. But, I mean, it is a good breakfast stout, Don't have to go to Dunkin's. Skip the breakfast sandwiches. Skip Starbucks. Go to Bissell Brothers. Get yourself a maple stout. Bring that to work. Bring that on the car ride. You'll be good to go. Up next, we have a chocolate milk stout called ... Sandwiches from a brewery called Bone Up. It's called ... Sandwiches because it's actually combined with another beer called It's Like We Finish Each Other's ... The reason why it's like that, the first beer, It's Like We Finish Each Other's, is a raspberry farmhouse ale. Again, this is a chocolate milk stout. The brewers have designed it so that each beer is great on their own, but they're actually meant to be mixed together in what they call a beer tail. The reason for that, you've got two opposites, you put them together, they complement one another, you can really get all those good tastes out of it. But Bone Up Brewery, they're a microbrewery down in Everett, Mass. Not really well known, but a lot of people have seen them. They are literally down the street from Night Shift Brewery, which of course almost everybody has heard of. Everybody's had a Centilli, a Whirlpool, something like that. It's a great little spot. They do a lot of things for the community. They use locally sourced ingredients. They do a lot of stuff with animal shelters. They're always having parties, telling everybody and their mother to bring the dogs. They've got dogs and things all over all their beers, their glasses, handkerchiefs, you name it. It's a really good little place to hang out. They've got arcades in there, pinball machines, the works. So if you're in the Everett area, obviously go to Night Shift, but do yourself a favor. Go down the street, check out Bone Up. These guys, they specialize in more of the Belgian ales style. Belgian being a little bit more metallic-y. And they put it in every one of their beers, whether it's a sour ale or the stout here in general. You're going to always taste it in there, but of course, with it being a chocolate milk stout, you're going to get a lot more of the chocolate. One thing to note, milk stouts are not one of those beers that you're going to want to have multiples of. Obviously, with the lactose in it, mixed with the beer, usually doesn't work well with people. I mean, I work with a guy, this really tough guy from Medford. He thought he could do it. Had about 2 or 3 the first night, paid for it for the next few days. So I wouldn't recommend doing it. And if you find a really tough guy in Medford, go ask him too. He'll tell you the same thing. This is 6.9%. So you're kind of in between a heavy and a light beer. Of course, it being a stout, it's going to be a little bit heavier than normal. But it still kind of lingers on the line. That will make it a little bit easier to have. So let's pour it out. Take a look at her. As you can see, big surprise, super dark, but just basic and brown, nothing too special. You can already smell the chocolate coming off of it, which is of course one of the biggest characteristics on it. Taking a look at it, it's got a little bit more of a lighter head. Still brown, again, from the coffee and the chocolate that's stuck inside of it. Again, sniffing beers, very important. Definitely tell that it's got that Belgian inspired, but of course the first thing that hits you is the chocolate. It doesn't smell strong, it isn't heavy, it's just, seems like a relatively easy drinking stout. So. Yep, right off the bat, definitely metallic, but you can taste the chocolate. It's really smooth, undoubtedly from the lactose. That's what makes it the milk stout. As it's going down, though, you could feel it definitely filling yourself up. But very velvety, very smooth, really good mouthfeel. kind of lingers in your mouth, but not in like a gross way that's leaving a film in the back of your throat or on your tongue or anything of that nature. Just a relatively easy drinking stout in comparison to a lot of the other ones out there, like oatmeal stout or the next one that's going to be coming up, which is a pastry stout. Overall, it's a really good beer. You know, I give it a 4.5 out of 5. Highly recommend you try it. Really good company, really good brewery. You know, they make a bunch of different kinds, but chocolate milk stout, definitely a big thumbs up. All right, guys, up next we have a Imperial pastry stout coming to us from Lone Pine, which is up in Portland, Maine. Another pretty good sized brewery. A lot of people know it. They do a lot of collaborations. This one in particular is with a company called Holy Donut. Again, if you've been in the Portland area, and unless you've been living under a rock, you know what Holy Donut is. It's a donut shop. Big surprise. But they don't make donuts the conventional way. They're potato donuts. And at first it sounds a little strange because you're like, who the hell's caring to make donuts out of potatoes? But they're amazing. If you're in the area, they've got one in Scarborough. They've got 2 in Portland. Definitely worth the try. But these guys collaborate with them a lot. They make a lot of different beers. You know, they make a lot of stouts, but they actually make a sour, a couple different sours with it too. They're all really good. The brewery itself is really, really small, but it's a cool little place. You know, the brewery, they do a little bit of everything. They make stouts, IPAs, sours, ales, and they're all pretty consistent throughout. It's a pretty cool, unique little place to hang out. You know, they put flights in broken up skis, which is pretty cool. They're kind of nostalgic and a little bit weird. You know, when I say that, we're talking, you know, cuddling cats on glasses and beer, dinosaurs, triceratops, and unicorns. So a little bit of everything. But it's a cool little place. Definitely recommend you check it out. This one in particular is a, again, chocolate strawberry stout. It comes in at 9%, which is definitely the heaviest beer that we're doing tonight. We're at 9%. Obviously, we're getting into the double digits, which can definitely get a little bit scary. Obviously, the higher beers, definitely not meant for something to be chugged, but still a great beer overall. Obviously, with it being chocolate and strawberry, it's going to be sweet, it's going to be bitter, but it's going to be really tasty. You know, it's going to be something really, really good. So, let's crack it open, see what it looks like. Yep, right off the bat, you definitely get the strawberry, definitely get the chocolate. You know, it doesn't hit you in the face. You know, it's pretty subtle, which is good, which means it's usually pretty well balanced. You know, obviously too much of one or the other is going to make it kind of stale. But it smells great. As you can see pouring it out, it's nice and dark, but, you know, in the right light, you've got a lot of the amber, a lot of the red, obviously from the strawberries, you know. It'll definitely give it some nice balance, give it some good taste. You know, the head of it is a little bit darker. No surprise there, obviously from the dark chocolate that's sitting inside of it. Not too much a head on it, not a big deal. You know, they use dark chocolate. You know, it's going to be pretty heavy versus like a milk chocolate or even like white chocolate, which they do put into some beers. Again, it's a little hard to tell, but you can definitely tell in the right light that it's got some amber hues to it. Okay. Yep. It's definitely chocolatey. Definitely hits you with it right off the bat. Pretty bitter too. Probably a little bit too bitter, but you know, right after that initial bitterness hits you, the strawberry comes into play, kind of mellows it out, kind of calms it down. But with it being 9%, with that kind of a bitterness strength, it's definitely more of a sipping beer. You know, it's not one that it's just like, oh, like the first crack, or even the bone up one. This one's definitely more of, okay, I'm done with dinner. What kind of liquid dessert can we have? This is the one. It'll get you there. It's going to be tasty. It's going to be good. You know, does fill you. You know, it tastes like you're eating a chocolate-covered strawberry. Maybe stuffed into a donut as well, thanks to the Holy Donut. But it's a pretty solid beer. This particular batch, I would probably give it a 3.5 out of 5. I had it before last year. That was a 4.5. You know, this is kind of the give and take. We're looking at craft breweries and they're making small batches of beer. It's not a perfect science. They're all going to be a little bit different. This batch is good, but the one I had last year, much, much better. Still a good one, 3.5. Definitely check it out. Telling you right now, though, just sip it. It'll hit all the sweet spots for you. All right, guys, the last one of the night, no surprise, is going to be a Guinness Drought Stout. Guinness, of course, being one of the most recognizable beers, especially in the stout world. Super old brewery. Place has been around since 1759. No wonder it's basically the number one choice of stouts all over the world. Ireland, America, almost anywhere you go. Again, a lot of people get scared of stouts, especially when you pour Guinness out. You know, there's a lot going on. You know, the head is moving through and through it. You know, it's light on top, dark on the bottom. But this beer is 4.2%, which is basically nothing. Especially in the world of stouts, there's nothing to it, you know. Bud Light is 5% beer. Bud Lights are terrible. We will never be reviewing those here, ever. So, you're welcome. So, in essence, by you drinking a Guinness is actually better in multiple ways than buying any kind of Bud Light ever. This beer is going to be really velvety. You know, Guinness has been around, obviously, for an incredibly long time. One of the great things about Guinness is that they've been learning to adapt with the times. You know, a Guinness Stout used to be heavy. Alcohol content was still the same, but it was always known as a heavy beer because of how simple it is. You know, it's got malt in it, and then just some basics inside just for color and flavor. The reason why that is the way, though, is because there's usually a little bit of extra malt, which is why it's so dark, which is why it gives you a more impressive head. But again, it's scary. It is what it is. Just comes with the territory. But they've learned to adapt with the times. They don't just make strictly this beer. They've got blonde stouts. They've got a bunch of different other ones that they come out with. The new cans now, they come with what's called a widget, which is just like a little square circular piece that holds nitrogen inside of it. When you crack open the can, you actually hear the nitrogen come on. You let the beer sit for about a minute to let it work its magic inside the can before you pour it out. You want to see or learn more about it, Mike actually shot a video a little while ago showing you how to pour it. Physically has a widget with them, gives a little bit more into it. So if you got any interest in it, take a look at that video. But let's crack this one open. Again, we have to let it sit for a minute, so might as well get that going. If you listen closely, you'll definitely be able to hear that nitrogen kick on right when you open it up. So, that whistling noise, that's what you're looking for. So, crack it open, kind of just let it sit for about a minute. Like I said, let the nitrogen kind of work its magic inside the can. Kind of let it go from there. It's just, part of the magic of what the Guinness is all about. That's why most people, they have it on draft. Having a can is great, having it in a bottle is great, but that's why more people will have it on tap. It's easier to serve, easier to handle. There's no waiting game. You can get it on tap on nitro. A lot of breweries are already doing that. Just to name a few, Lord Hobo, they've got a meat and potatoes, which is a stout. They have that on nitro. Bone Up has a beer on nitro. Lone Pine has a beer on nitro. A lot of people are doing it. It's really just to make sure the beer is more drinkable, gives a little bit more of like a velvety mouthfeel, just kind of gives it an overall better tasting beer. So let's pour it out, kind of show you what it's all about. You want a warm glass, that's definitely a standard. A frosted glass, you're just not going to get the same essence, as it were. 45-degree angle, pour it slow, let it come up, kind of let it come together. So 45 degrees, pour it out. As you can see, nice and dark. Got some good basic malt. It's actually kind of opaque. It's probably one of the only beers we've had tonight that you can actually see through it. Kind of let it pour it out. You can see on the bottom of it, all of the malts and things, they're moving up and down, going to the bottom, making it darker, and then eventually slowly bring itself back up. You've got that like super identifiable thick head on top of here. An interesting thing, typically if you have a beer that's got a solid head like this, as you drink it, the head's going to go down, but a Guinness will basically stay there until the end of it, and it'll taste the same, stay consistent. The beer's got a little bit of an amber hue, not all that much. It's more of a brown, but there's still like a little bit of amber inside of there. So as you can see, it's worked itself up completely. So now you've got like a nice solid beer with that good color head on top. You can also see it's a pretty light color head. You know, we've seen some tonight, dark, medium. This is almost white. There's really, really not a lot on here. Again, has to do with the opaqueness of the beer. But, you know, drinking it, yep, it's delicious. Super smooth, very easy to drink, really good mouthfeel. You know, it lingers enough in there where it gives you the taste of the true beer, but it doesn't hang around. It doesn't give a film, doesn't stick to your tongue, the roof of your mouth, the back of your throat, kind of makes you like lick the roof of your mouth, begging for a glass of water. That's not this beer. It's not heavy by any means, you know, I mean, I'm already ready for another sip. So it's a very, very easy drinking beer. You know, when my friends and we go out, you know, the slogan is we always finish on a Guinness. So if we're out and it's 12:30 in the morning, time to finish, you know, we find everybody finishes the beer they have, and then we get a round of Guinness. Some people can handle it, some people can't. You know, one of the most rememberable times is I was out with a group of friends celebrating somebody's 21st birthday. We'll just call him Hammerhead. We're all out, we're all drinking, everything's good. It was Hammerhead's 21st. He refused. And I didn't really give a shit. I told him he was drinking a Guinness, and that was going to be the end of it. So us other men who were adults drank our Guinnesses with pleasure and with ease. But Hammerhead, not so much. And he couldn't even finish half of it. And since then, he still hasn't had a Guinness, and he said he never will. But long story short, Guinness, it's a great, great stout. Super easy to drink, not heavy on the ABVs, not heavy in color, not a heavy beer in general. You know, if you're nervous about drinking stouts and you want to get into it, you have to start with the original. You have to start with a Guinness, kind of get you on the ball rolling, let it go from there. It's a really good beer. Definitely check it out. And don't drink Bud Light. All right, guys, so this basically wraps up our stout video for the night. As you can see, we've kind of looked around, branched out to a couple different ones versus some that are pretty light in nature versus some that are definitely a sipping, heavier beer. Different colors, tastes, varieties. Definitely something out there for everybody. You know, if you're looking to get into the stout game, looking to try something a little bit different, you know, there's tons of breweries. Almost every brewery has some kind of a stout. So it's really just a matter of what you're looking for, what kind of flavor profile you're looking at, and finding the right place that can make you that good stout. Obviously, again, if the color still scares you, because like, heaven forbid, it's a dark beer, you can't have something like that. There are brewers out there that look exactly like this, or actually darker, and they're not the flavor profile at all. You know, there are breweries out there that are making black IPAs, black lagers, and although they don't taste like a stout, they certainly look like one, but they're velvety, they're smooth, they're just really, really good. Again, if the color does scare you, keep an eye out for white stouts. Most noticeably and recently, Lord Hobo had one come out. It was a Lab Talk. Lab Talk was a white stout. Same characteristics, chocolate, cocoa, the works. But when you pour it, it looks like a New England IPA, which, if you've ever had one before, is very much see-through, but orange as well. So something to keep an eye out for, you know. I know some of you people are probably like, hey Steve, you've talked about stouts, but there's not a single porter anywhere in this video. Well, that's because porters are not stouts. Porters are different than stouts. Stouts are darker, they're heavier, higher alcohol content in general. That's a whole different video for a whole other day. We'll talk about porters at another point. Follow me on Untapped. My name will populate somewhere down here. It's don't call me Shirley. Make sure you spell it right. You can look at all the beers that I'm drinking, look at all my reviews, basically just as in-depth as here, but become friends with me. We can talk about beer, all that good stuff. Obviously, like, follow, subscribe. Tell your friends, your grandmother, the neighbor you hate, your dog. Tell us that what's going on. Make sure to drink safe, drink fresh, and drink local. Cheers, guys.